Terence Crawford is still continuing to go at Tank over the controversy that unfolded in Brooklyn. The boxing world was left in shock as Davis went head-to-head with his former amateur rival Lamont Roach in a lightweight world title clash. While Davis was the overwhelming favorite, the fight did not go as planned, leaving fans and fighters questioning the final result. However, Roach has now revealed that in their verbal exchanges in the ring, Tank gave a prediction that held so much more than just words. Let's look at the details emerging.
Both parties weren't falling for him at some points in that fight, but I believe we won that fight clearly. We should be two-time world champion right now.
Davis found himself in serious trouble in the 9th round when he shockingly dropped to a knee. It was a clear moment that should have been ruled a knockdown, but incredibly, the referee did not score it as one. This decision ended up playing a crucial role in the outcome, as the fight was scored a draw. Had the knockdown been correctly counted, Roach would have received a 10-8 round, which could have been enough for him to pull off a stunning victory. The aftermath was chaotic. Boxing fans and fighters erupted in outrage, but leading the charge was none other than Terence Crawford. The pound-for-pound king wasted no time in calling out the situation, taking to social media with an angry rant that added even more fuel to the fire.
They made the rules up. Yeah, that was bullshit. It should have been called a knockdown. You can't take a break like that. The only person that can do that is the referee. The referee can stop the action and say, hey, let me take you to the corner.
Crawford first posted, "Roach won, and that should have been called a knockdown. Let's see what happens." When the final verdict of a draw was announced, Crawford's frustration boiled over even more. He wrote, "They robbed that boy and it's crazy. I have never seen someone take a knee and they don't count it as a knockdown. Must have forgotten the rules for tonight," but he wasn't done yet. In his final say on the subject, Crawford brought up a past moment in boxing history to highlight the controversy. "Some of you all need to watch Floyd Mayweather versus Renato Hernandez and see Mayweather take a knee because he hurt his hand. And it was called a knockdown, and not from a punch either." Now, just a while ago, Crawford expressed deep certainty that Tank was aware of what he was doing. Pretty Boy thought that he could mess around and still win. You can't fool fans. That's why even if the fight was to be judged in his favor, they had to go with a draw. But it's clear who won. The boy said that Tank promised him he would lose mid-fight, that they weren't going to give it to him. That right there should be looked at. How do you get rocked and wobble and still be sure of a win? But Crawford wasn't the only one who had something to say. The entire boxing community is still currently talking about the controversial moment, with many believing Roach was unfairly denied a victory. Despite the fortunate outcome, Davis retained his undefeated record and still holds the WBA lightweight world title. However, the controversy surrounding the fight has cast a shadow over the result. Now, even though there were some talks of a rematch with Roach, Davis himself has now quickly shut down any discussions of a rematch, making it clear that he had no interest in running it back with Roach. It was a tough night for him, and while he escaped with his record intact, the criticism from fans and fellow fighters has been relentless.
The officiating his own fight, taking the knee, and then being addressed in the corner with the towel, wiping away. Like, I've never known that to be in any rule book in any state or country anywhere.
The moment that sparked the controversy remains the biggest talking point of the fight. According to the official rules of boxing, if a fighter's knee touches the canvas, it should be counted as a knockdown. There is no gray area. However, in this case, the referee simply ignored it, and the decision had massive consequences. Roach was understandably furious after the fight, feeling robbed of a victory that could have changed his career forever. He strongly believed he had done enough to win even without the knockdown, but knowing that a crucial point was taken away from him made things even more frustrating.
I think when he found out this guy is in front of me, he's taking it. I think it was too late. I thought it was disappointing that it didn't draw.
After the fight, Roach spoke his mind about the situation, expressing his disbelief at what had happened. He said, "Honestly, I thought I should have won without that being counted as a knockdown. Look, I ain't the ref. I ain't. And really, if he had to wipe sweat out of his eye, he had to wipe sweat out of his eye. But the rules do state if you voluntarily take a knee, then that's an automatic 8 count." His words only reinforced what the boxing world was already thinking. According to the rulebook, Davis's knee touching the ground should have resulted in an 8 count. Instead, he was allowed to continue without penalty, ultimately leading to a draw instead of what could have been a loss.
That fight playing out, what's the biggest advantage that Keyshawn has going against
Tank?
Yeah, it's a great boxer. Keyshawn's a great boxer, and he got power behind him too. So I can see that fight just being an entertaining fight. Keyshawn's an entertainer, like you said. Tank comes in there trying to knock you out. I can see that fight just being entertained and doing later rounds. Keyshawn can stop it. Yeah.
Roach continued to reflect on his performance, stating, "But it is what it is. I wasn't relying on that. I was relying on what I was doing there. I was taking control. I think I was landing more shots, more power shots, and I thought I was doing my thing. So I'm not really that frustrated, but if that was counted as a knockdown, I'd have won a majority decision." His frustration was clear, and rightfully so. It's not every day that a fighter gets the opportunity to dethrone an undefeated star like Davis. And for Roach, this was a once-in-a-lifetime moment. The fact that he performed so well, only to have a crucial moment overlooked, made the situation even harder to accept.
What was going through your mind when you heard the decision?
Nobody like a draw, from a guy that get knockouts and things like that, but it's cool. I feel like if we fight again, I could do more.
As for Davis, he tried to explain what happened, claiming that he had grease in his eyes which forced him to take a knee. This explanation did little to calm the storm, as fans and fighters alike weren't buying it. Many pointed out that it didn't matter why he took a knee. What mattered was that his knee touched the canvas, and the referee should have counted it. This controversy has now placed Davis under heavy scrutiny. His undefeated record remains intact, but at what cost? Many fans have started to question whether he truly deserved to walk away without a loss, and some are even calling for an immediate rematch to settle the dispute.
Or your future?
Yeah, it definitely changed my plans. It definitely changed my plans. I probably got like 4 more fights now, for sure.
Boxing fans are also in complete agreement with Crawford, fuming that Davis was spared from a clear knockdown in the 9th round. "Robbed in broad daylight, man, with cameras in every corner," said one user. Another commented, "It should be a knockdown. Roach won that." A third put, "Damn, all the sports getting rigged, SMH." A Davis supporter admitted, "Yeah, I'm a huge Tank fan, but I can't defend this. I've never seen something like this before. Wild. Such a shame they robbed an underdog," concluded a fifth. Another asked, "Is taking a knee allowed now?" While one simply put, "Rigged." According to DAZN boxing reporter Chris Mannix, Davis could even have been disqualified for taking a timeout to get his face wiped by his corner. Texting with 3 veteran boxing referees, Mannix revealed on X, all agree the knee should have been called a knockdown. One noted that Tank could have been disqualified for getting his face wiped by his corner. Davis clarified after the draw, which goes down as the first blemish on his 31-fight record, that he merely wanted to wipe his face due to a burning sensation caused by a hair product running down into his eyes. "I didn't want to get caught while my eyes were burning," he stressed. "And you can't get knocked out like that, so I'd rather take a knee. But I didn't really know that you can get disqualified for all that. When refs started counting, I'm like, what the H?" As the fight progressed, it felt like Roach Jr.'s chances of becoming the first man to defeat Davis increased. However, Davis seemed to have a beat on how the fight would play out if it reached the final bell. While they talked throughout the fight, in the latter stages of the bout, Tank told Roach Jr. that he wasn't going to get the nod if it went to decision. "When we were talking in the 12th round, I think the 12th or 11th, we were just talking about stuff, right?" Roach Jr. said. But he's like, "You ain't gonna win." I said, "Why not? What are you talking about?" He was like, "They ain't gonna give it to you." I was like, "Oh, is that right? So, that's how boxing works." It's sad to say, that's how boxing works.
You guys were really jawing back and forth at each other. What were you guys saying to each other? It felt like more than any of your other fights, it was a lot of jawing in the ring.
Just trash talking a little bit. You know what I mean? We didn't get too crazy, but it's a fight.
As disheartening as it is for a fighter to put their best foot forward only to end up on the wrong side of a decision, Roach Jr. said he wasn't too upset, noting that the final verdict was part of how things play out in boxing. "I'm not totally upset. I figured with a superstar, you won't get too much on paper, but I am sure I thought I had it, especially when they announced the score for him. I was like, oh, they're gonna give me a split decision. I was like, oh yeah, here it comes. But as soon as I heard that 114, I was just like, damn. Roach Jr. not getting the nod becomes tougher to stomach when you look at how the 9th round played out and how 2 of the 3 judges scored the bout.
I don't know. But were you surprised? Because I know everybody else was. That Roach could take your power because you were throwing bombs in some of those rounds. Yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
And then there was what Davis said to Roach Jr. during the fight. If Tank knew Roach wasn't going to get the decision, what does that mean? Fighters talk trash, but this wasn't some regular back and forth. Tank wasn't saying he was winning, he was saying Roach wasn't going to get the decision. He sounded like a man who already knew how the night would end. Did Davis feel something was already set in place? Did he know no matter how close the fight was, the judges weren't going to give Roach the win? Maybe it was just bravado, or maybe it was something more.
I didn't want to get caught. I didn't want to get caught while my eyes was burning. And you know, like, you can get knocked out like that. So I'd rather take the knee than, you know. But I didn't really know that you can, like, get disqualified for all that. Or, like, when you start counting, I'm like, what the hell? But
it's not the first time people have questioned a controversial call in a fight, but this one felt different. A fight being close is one thing, but a clear knockdown not being counted, a superstar fighter taking a knee in the middle of a round and getting his face wiped while the referee stands there, a fighter outright saying his opponent wasn't going to win, and then, what do you know? His opponent doesn't win? It's why fans are upset. It's why Crawford spoke out. This wasn't just a bad decision. It was a moment that made people question if the sport was being played fair.
And I thought I should have won a competitive fight. I think I did what I needed to do necessary to bank the rounds, and even without the knee, that should have been a knockdown. So you know, I don't think there's any excuse for me not to win tonight, but that's just how the cookie crumbled.
This comes after Terence Crawford recently talked about who he believes will finally put a dent in Tank Davis's undefeated record. The pound-for-pound great has been around long enough to know how boxing politics work, but when it comes to the actual fights, he's confident that Tank won't walk away unscathed if he steps in the ring with Keyshawn Davis or Shakur Stevenson. Crawford's comments weren't just about picking winners. They were a statement. Tank knows what's coming if he ever dares to face real threats, and he's avoiding them for a reason.
Who were you going to call out? What was the plan originally?
I think he was here.
Tank gonna do him.
He came in my locker room.
Shakur Stevenson?
He wasn't in my locker room.
Great call.
Next question.
For years, Tank has been carefully navigating his career, taking fights that guarantee him a highlight reel knockout while sidestepping the real dangers in the division. Crawford, who's made a career out of taking on the best and winning in dominant fashion, sees right through it. He laid it out in plain terms. Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis have the mental toughness, the IQ, and the skill set to break Tank down. Not just for a few rounds, but for an entire fight. That's the difference. Fighters like Ryan Garcia, Rolly Romero, and Hector Luis Garcia may have had some skill, but they lacked the discipline and consistency to keep up for 12 rounds. That's not the case with Stevenson and Keyshawn.
I don't want to fight one of them. You know what I'm saying? I don't care who I fight at this point. I don't care. But I'm telling you, if you give me either or before they rematch, I'm fucking their rematch up. They getting put. I'm telling you, I ain't even playing. I ain't playing, bro. I'm young. I'm on fire. I'm young and I'm on fire.
Stevenson is a master technician, someone who rarely takes damage and controls the pace of every fight he's in. His ability to adapt, stay calm under pressure, and frustrate opponents is what makes him dangerous. Against Tank, he wouldn't engage in a slugfest. He'd pick him apart, round by round, making Tank look lost. The way Tank loads up on his shots and fights in bursts plays right into Stevenson's game. Fighters who rely too much on power usually find themselves frustrated when they can't land clean shots. Crawford knows it, Tank knows it, and anyone who understands boxing knows it. Then there's Keyshawn Davis. Some might argue he's still developing, but Crawford doesn't see it that way. Keyshawn has that hunger, that belief, that relentless style that can push Tank into deep waters. Unlike many of Tank's past opponents, Keyshawn wouldn't just try to survive. He'd press forward and force Tank into an uncomfortable fight. And when Tank gets uncomfortable, we've seen what happens. He either bails himself out with a knockout punch or finds an excuse. Crawford's message was clear. Against the right opponent, Tank won't have an escape route.
Oh, undefeated. And what champ? Come on, man. Tell me what belt. You know boxing. You forgot Devin Haney is undisputed. Devin Haney got all the belts. He the champ. Nobody else the champ. I'm gonna come up here where the big boys at. All right, I'll welcome him.
Tank fans might brush off Crawford's words as just another fighter talking, but the reality is, there's a reason Tank isn't actively chasing a Stevenson or a Keyshawn fight. He knows the risks. That's not to say he's scared, but there's a level of careful matchmaking that's been happening for years. If Tank truly believed he was the best, he would have taken the Lomachenko fight years ago when the hype was at its peak. Instead, he let that fight fade away and waited for Lomachenko to show signs of slowing down. Now, with Stevenson and Keyshawn emerging as legitimate threats, the same pattern is happening. What makes this even more controversial is that Tank has always marketed himself as a killer, a knockout artist who would put anyone to sleep. But if that's true, why are the most skilled fighters being left out of the conversation? Crawford's words hit deep because they expose something that many fans refuse to admit. Tank is being protected, whether it's by his team, his promoters, or even himself.
Tank said he's now the new face of boxing. What do you think?
For sure, he's the face of boxing. I don't have no problem with saying that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he deserves everything that's coming to him. He's the face of boxing for sure.
If the fight against Roach proved anything, it's that Tank is not untouchable. He was given the benefit of the doubt when the referee didn't call a knockdown, and even his own supporters couldn't defend what happened. Now imagine if that fight had been against Stevenson or Keyshawn. There wouldn't have been a chance to recover. The moment Tank was in trouble, they would have pressed forward and taken over completely. That's the reality that Crawford sees, and that's why he's confident that Tank's first loss is only a matter of time. The irony in all of this is that Crawford and Tank aren't even in the same division, yet Crawford's words carry weight because he's speaking from experience. He's been in the ring with top-level competition and dominated. He's taken risks, moved up in weight, fought the best, and still came out on top.
About you and Tank, if that would happen. I know you sparred with him, correct?
Yeah.
So you and Tank, if that would have happened.
I feel like me and Tank fight how it would go would be like electrifying. Like, me and him are both mean, aggressive, bully. We bullies in the ring, you know, like, we bully the bully.
Tank, on the other hand, is still fighting guys who don't pose a real threat to him. It's a completely different approach to the sport, and Crawford calling it out makes it impossible to ignore. If Tank really wants to prove he's the best, there's only one way to do it. Fight Stevenson or Keyshawn Davis. No catchweights, no excuses, just a straight-up fight against someone who has the skills to match him. Until then, the doubts will remain and Crawford's words will continue to haunt him, because at the end of the day, being an undefeated knockout artist means nothing if the right names aren't on your resume.
Hey Shakur, like I was telling Bud, it's either you or Keyshaw's gonna get tanked, so the walls are closing in, so. Awesome.
It's gonna be him though.
It makes sense, he's closer.
Big brother first.
Shakur Stevenson reacted to Tank's controversial draw against Lamont Roach by reaffirming his desire to fight Tank. He stated he was still ready and willing to take on Davis and saw the fight as inevitable. Stevenson also revealed he had bet $5,000 that the fight would go the distance, which he won, further showing his confidence in his prediction of Tank's performance. His reaction suggested he saw weaknesses in Davis that he could exploit in a future fight. Keyshawn Davis, on the other hand, was even more aggressive in his response. He dismissed both Tank and Roach, boldly claiming he would knock them both out. His confidence and willingness to step into the ring with Tank have fueled speculation that he could be next in line for a major showdown.
The nigga trash. I'm talking about the opponent. The opponent.
Burn trash.
Ass. I just don't like how this guy.
With both Stevenson and Keyshawn publicly calling out Davis, and with Tank's controversial performance against Roach, talks of a unification fight with either man are heating up. Fans are now pushing for these matchups, believing the time is right for Davis to prove himself against elite competition. The controversy surrounding the draw has only made these potential fights even more appealing. What's your take? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.